Hello again, and thank you for joining us as we continue to look through the principles of easy worship. In our last few videos, we've looked at how we can create and edit a theme, create and edit a song, create and edit presentations, and we've also looked over the main interface of easy worship. And we've also looked at creating and editing schedules. Now, if you guys haven't watched those videos, there's a link to the playlist in the description below, so I highly recommend you go and check that out. In today's video, we're actually going to look at how we can set up a full live stream within Easy Worship to send to YouTube. In today's current situation, global situation, live streaming has become a pretty key factor for a lot of churches. And for those that are using Easy Worship, this is probably going to be the easiest and simplest way to set up a live stream to YouTube. So let's go ahead and jump in and see how we can do this. Now that I've got the face cam turned off, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and actually add the camera feed, and I'm going to show you how to overlay it onto each different item or element in the schedule. So to do that, we're going to go to Media, we're going to click on Feeds, and you're going to see there's nothing here. So we're going to click this plus button, and then we're going to go ahead and give it a name. I'm just going to call it Camera Feed. And under the input devices, if you have the camera connected, which for most cameras you're going to need some sort of a capture card in the camera itself. Our church uses the Canon Vixia RH800F, and we go straight into an Elgato 4K cam link. But for this, it's just going to show up as a Logitech webcam or a USB video device. And so I'm going to go ahead and select that, and you should see my picture come right back up. So we're going to go ahead and click OK. And then you'll see it's added to camera feed, and you can see the live preview down here of what's going on. So now, because we don't want any sound with this either, because we're actually pulling our sound from our sound console in the church, I'm going to go edit the feed, and you want to make sure that you have mute checked, because you don't want to be pulling any audio from this at all, because that can cause some audio issues. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now all you got to do to get the camera feed on top of all of these is just drag it on till you got it highlighted blue like that. And then you'll see it's added the little camera logo on there. So we'll go ahead and we'll keep doing that on each item. And again, as you can see this, you can see it's making the background a little bit wider. And also you'll see a camera logo up there. So once we got this applied to all the different elements, you now have your entire schedule set up for a live stream. Now, if you want to go ahead and check and see what it's going to be like, you can click to go live, and you can see that there we go. And now, within each presentation, I do have different parts of them done as well. So we're going to start off in the welcome one. You can see all the welcome one is that. It's just a plain, typically for us, it's a close-up shot or a wide-angle shot, depending on how the service is starting, of the praise team or of who's ever opening the service in prayer. And then when we transition into the worship, as you can see, it still kept the video feed up, but it put the lyrics down in the lower third. So as we scroll down, you'll see that the lyrics keep transitioning and keep changing as expected, and this will happen on each one. And then again, in Shout to the Lord, it's the exact same thing. And then after we finish up worship, we would go into the announcements. Now here in our announcements thing, you can see I've got two slides actually made. I've got the main one, and then when who's ever giving the announcements, which is usually our other pastor that we have in the church, I would go ahead and transition to that slide, and it would go ahead and bring up the logo that I put in on the slide and everything like that. And now the pastor's sermon notes, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, and I do recommend if you're able to get some sort of photo editing program that allows you to take the background off of a picture. Because as you can see here, when we transition into the pastor's notes, I've got the similar thing done as I did in the announcements, where I have the pastor's name and everything. But then I have the notes go up in the upper right-hand corner, and all that is it's a PNG picture file that I've taken from the PowerPoint slide that was initially made out of the pastor's notes. And I'll walk through how to do that in a separate video. But for now, as you can see as I transition, it just goes ahead and keeps all the notes up there, keeps the video feed up, running very smoothly and everything like that. So to him, it's the next item in the schedule. And again, you would just advance like normal, and then when the hymn's over, you would go ahead and transition to the benediction. And then once you're in the benediction, again, I've got a logo in there. If people want to contact our church or anything like that, I would normally just throw that logo up. So that's pretty much how you can get Easy Worship set. But there's still one other piece that's needed. Once you've got Easy Worship set, you got to be able to connect this to YouTube. And this is where you're going to need additional software like OBS or vMix, or if you're using a video switcher, some of that stuff has it built directly in to go to YouTube and everything like that. But for our church, we use OBS. OBS is a free software. It stands for Open Broadcaster Service, and it allows you to connect direct to YouTube and do a whole bunch of different things. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to transition over to OBS, and I'm going to show you guys how you can set up to capture Easy Worship and then send that to YouTube. So here we are in the main interface of OBS, and it's a pretty powerful tool, but for right now we're going to focus on these two panels right here, the scenes and the source. So first things first, we want to create a new scene, and we're going to call it Easy Worship Scene. And what a scene is a collection of all your sources. Now, to capture Easy Worship, what we'd want to do is we want to tell it to capture whatever output monitor that we're using in Easy Worship. But first, let's go ahead and get Easy Worship open. And again, like I said in one of our previous videos, I have the live sets turned on by default. So now we're going to go ahead and open our schedule. And we're going to minimize Easy Worship, and then I'm going to add the display output or the display capture as a source within Easy Worship. So I've selected the monitor that it's currently outputting to. I do not want to tell it to capture the cursor though. So the next thing we would normally do is add in our audio source. Now, because I'm not recording this at our church, I'm not going to be able to do that. But normally, since we use a Behringer X32, which I highly recommend, I would just go ahead and add that as an audio input source by clicking the plus button, audio input source, and selecting the X32 based on the expansion card that you have in your X32 console. But for this video, we don't need to worry about that. So now I'm going to go back into Easy Worship, and I'm going to tell Easy Worship to go live with our first thing. And you're going to see in the output window that now it is, or now that OBS is now capturing the output window. So as I go through Easy Worship and I go in advance to the different things, you will see in the output window that it is going to capture everything that happens. So when we go to the first song, you'll see that I've now gone in, put the first song up, and I'm transitioning through it, and you can see that the lower thirds are happening. So I'm going to minimize out of that now. And now we need to connect it all to YouTube. But first, let's go ahead and go back to a black screen. So in order to connect it to YouTube, what you need to do is you need to go to your YouTube account that you have. And by the way, in order to set up a live stream account, you do have to go through a 24-hour verification process. Once you go through the settings on YouTube to be able to enable your account for live streaming, which is a simple 3-click process, you then have to wait 24 hours for the verification period to happen. Once that's done, you can live stream to your channel. So what we need to do though is we now need to connect OBS to YouTube. Now we can do that by just getting the stream key. So I'm going to go open up Google Chrome, and I actually already have our stream pulled up. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this stream key. So I'm going to click copy on that. It's going to put it in our clipboard. I'm going to minimize that. And now I'm going to go into the settings of OBS. And I'm going to go to stream. I'm going to use services YouTube. So go down to YouTube. And this is where I'm going to put in the stream key. Now, on the output, you want to make sure that if you are using a computer that's using a dedicated graphics card, like for my computer, I have an AMD RX 5700 in there, that you're using the hardware encoder, not the software encoder. It's going to take a lot of stress off of your CPU. Now, the next setting that you want to check is your target bitrate. In order to stream at 1080p on YouTube, they recommend that you go anywhere from 3000 to 5500 kilobits per second. Now, I tend to find the sweet spot to be right between 3500 and 4000. And so I'm going to leave it set at 3500. That's good. And now on the video one, you want to make sure that whatever you're outputting is at the right resolution that you want to be putting it out. So my base canvas within OBS is going to be the same as my screen resolution, 1920 by 1080. And I want to make sure my output is the exact same. And unless I'm trying to do anything fancy, I recommend sticking with the 30 frames per second, just because people that are viewing the service, they're not they may not notice the difference between 30 and 60 FPS a second. And so at this point, we have it all set up and ready to go straight to YouTube. So if I wanted to send it live to YouTube, what I would do now is I would click apply and then click OK. And then I would click start streaming. So once I click start streaming, it's going to start sending information to YouTube. And then I'm going to go pull up YouTube. And in just a minute, you'll see that this comes up and says excellent condition. And then once it fully syncs up with our streaming software, we're going to see that this is going to go to a preview. And let's go back and put some lyrics up on the screen, actually. So I'm going to click go live again and put lyrics up and take the black off. And if you give it just a second, you'll see that come up. Now, the other thing I recommend doing in your YouTube stream is setting the latency to be ultra low latency. This removes the amount of lag that there's going to be between when you're sending it to your computer to when it's hitting YouTube. It's going to significantly decrease. It's not going to remove it, but it is going to significantly decrease it. And then if I wanted it to go live on YouTube, all I would do is click this go live button and it would go live. Alright, and there you have it. So that is how you can connect Easy Worship to OBS and then send OBS to YouTube. I hope you've enjoyed these videos as we've looked at the basic principles of Easy Worship. And in our next video, we're going to look at some basic troubleshooting that we can do on a Sunday morning if something happens to go wrong. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you'll join us in our next video. And God bless. Have a great one.